Ladies and gentlemen, let's Red Game Intercom video. I want to go through a recent interview that Phil Spencer's had with the Inner Circle. Well, not the entire interview, but just a couple of very key topics. Now, I have done this in an article yesterday, where I definitely ad-lib a little bit more than what I will in this video, and it also contains some reference material as well from some stuff we're going to be discussing in this video. So if you want more information, you can go ahead and click the link in the description. But anyway, on with the show. So as I said, Phil Spencer recently had an interview with the Inner Circle. And Phil Spencer, of course, is now appointed to be head of the Xbox division. And it's fair to say that since July, he's actually done a really good job. In fact, I've actually got a lot of respect for Phil. He's been asked a couple of really crucial questions. One regarding backwards compatibility. The second is cloud computing. And the third and final one would be DX12. So let's discuss backwards compatibility first. Back compat is always a hot topic for the turn of the generation. I get why, especially on the 360. As so many people bought so much digital content, and it means a lot for us holding on to our 360s. He says, I truly respect the question. There's nothing I can say now, but I'll just say that I hear you, and I definitely hear you, and I'll continue to try to work to build something that can help people out. End quote. I understand. It's not the greatest thing, but it shows that they are most likely working on something in the background. I did go a lot more in depth with this in the article, but suffice to say, I think emulation of the 360 locally is not going to happen, just because the architectures are too different. The original Xbox, which you can't even call it Xbox One, so let's just call it the Xbox original, that has a chance of being emulated because not only are they x86, but it's so old now. I do feel that you can do it. The problem is it going to be worth it? How many original Xbox owners still own the games but don't own the consoles? I'm going to wager quite a few don't. So in which case, if they would emulate it, it's possibly just going to be done digitally anyway. In other words, maybe via the cloud. But of course, who the hell knows? So what about the cloud computing fiasco? Because I think it's fair to say one of the problems that Microsoft definitely ran into in regards to marketing was how much fun a lot of a lot of advanced users were making of the whole cloud fiasco. Because I even did quite an in-depth article and video myself mentioning about the whole problem with latencies and cloud computing, basically offloading performance to the cloud, and you know how they could have potentially 10 Xbox One performance in the cloud and so on and so on. You remember all of that stuff. So anyway, he says, on the cloud, I don't know, but people always make fun of me when I say cloud. I need to come up with another word. Just like with dedicated servers and people playing multiplayer, but people don't think of the cloud as because everyone does it, and I get that, but I think I looked at a stat the other day, and I bet it's going to be like 34 to 40% of games this holiday are going to be using the cloud technology we put in some way or another. When you look at something like Crackdown, you're picking up something that's trying to jump a leap ahead and do things that people haven't done before. Titanfall did this with the AI stuff, and they did Halo 5 is going to do something that's obviously making use of that technology. In any of these technologies, you kind of do a little on the technology platform side, then you get some studios to try and use the tech, and they tell you what's working and what's not working. The platform makes more progress, and you kind of just iterate over time. Definitely from first party and third parties, we're seeing a lot more and more people use the technology that we're putting out there and use it. Maybe we should think about how to talk about with consumers better, he concludes. You know what, I actually quite respect that opinion. I sort of agree with him. I think one of the problems Microsoft had with this is that a lot of gamers, I should go with advanced gamers, we just said, well, we don't really think it's going to work like that, and Microsoft really just forced it down the throats of gamers, and I think to a degree now it's something that they somewhat regret. And I think that they somewhat overhyped it, because at the end of the day, all cloud is, it just networks the computers. It's not anything special and magical. And cloud itself is a buzzword, and it's really, I mean, I'm into IT. I actually handle IT. One of my old jobs actually was an IT manager at one company, and you would always see it like cloud, 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 and the websites that were built distributing like cloud services, they would always make it sound like magical, so that when like a CEO or whatever would take a look at that website, it would seem that much more impressive. When in reality, of course, all they are is just networks of regular computers, which have a lot of advantages. Like the cloud is actually, for Microsoft, is being handled by the Azure services, Windows Azure. And I've got to say, I really like it. It has a few issues, a few niggles, but primarily the major issues is just through the GUI. It's not as robust as what it could be. There's some stuff that you really have to do via command line. It's not as friendly as what it could be, and so on and so forth. It's still quite a new technology, but it's still a very powerful technology. And I actually quite like it. I'm actually using it even over Amazon's Amazon Web Service. I actually prefer Azure technology. That's a personal preference. I'm not saying it's better. It's just for my needs. I prefer it. So we're going to have to wait. I personally feel that games like Titanfall, all they're effectively doing is just offloading things such as like artificial intelligence onto the servers, because it makes sense. Because let's say, let me just give you an example. Let's say that your machine is the one that's handling the AI on your Titan, just for example, and Bob's machine's handling the AI on his Titan. It just doesn't make sense. And then, of course, if you're running it on a centralized server anyway, so what they're effectively doing is freeing up a lot of CPU performance, because all of the AI is just being simply run on the instance of the machine that's loaded up, that's handling it. So it's just a lot better in that respect. I actually think with Titanfall it makes a lot of sense. I just don't think that they were... You know what, I'm going to go with... I don't think they lied, I just think that they vastly overhyped it. I think that's the fairest way to speak about it. So what about DX12? Well, DirectX 12... I think it's being seen as like the second coming for PC gamers as well as Xbox One owners. PC gamers are extremely excited about it for a variety of different reasons. And now, recently I've discussed DX 11.3 as well. There are links to that in this article that I've created. But I'll go into that in just a second. Let's first of all go through the quote with Phil. He says, on the DX12 question, I was asked early on by people if DX12 is going to be a dramatic change in the graphics capabilities of the Xbox, and I said it wouldn't. I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade, but the CPU, GPU, memory that are in the Xbox One don't change when we go to DX12. DX12 makes it easier to do some of the things that Xbox One is good at, which will be nice, and you'll see improvements in games that use DX12. But people ask me if it's going to be dramatic, and I think I answered no at the time, and I'll still say the same thing, end quote. I think, to be honest, Phil summed it up fairly nicely and succinctly, and I must say that I do feel it's fairly refreshing that he's not, what's the American phrase, blowing smoke up someone's ass? I think that's the phrase anyway, do correct me if I'm wrong. Probably am, but still. He's being fairly honest. I am curious because there are 2 points we need to remember. Surface Pro 3, which of course was demonstrated by Intel, I have links here in the video in the article. It had a massive performance boost with DX12. And remember, this is early beta code. But what we do have is the Xbox One already having some low-level API feature sets anyway. That's been discussed. We know it's true. That's all there is to it. So DX 11.3 is coming out, and DX 11.3 will bring out a variety of different features. So with that, it also begs the question, how much of DX12 does the Xbox One actually support? That's for A. And the second thing, but probably more the crucial one, is I think there's a lot of confusion regarding what it's going to change for now. And the answer is, for games that are currently out, I'll just use a pure example. Let's say Alien Isolation, which is quite a new title. or any of those games, it's not going to make them suddenly run faster. It's not going to make them run better unless the developers patch the things. Because the developers are using a certain code path. It's just like the June update, the June SDK update. Some developers have released patches which have improved performance, like day one patches. Others have just said, you know what, we missed it. On the sequel, that'll most likely use it. Done. Because it requires them to do extra testing, and then they have to basically make changes, and they have to pull people off of their teams, so it's not going to be that easy to do. Now I'm going to finalize this video by being a little controversial and say that I actually personally believe that if Phil Spencer had actually been the head of the Xbox One project from the inception, so in other words, when the console was first being designed and the hardware specs were being penciled in, I honestly believe the system would be, I wouldn't say drastically different, but I would imagine it would be quite different. And I don't know that for a fact. Maybe there were outside influences from the whole of Microsoft, and that's one theory. But I honestly believe some of the stuff in terms of the raw specifications would be a little different. But I think for the most part he's doing his best, and I do think he's more honest, and I do think he's better for the Xbox division, certainly in terms of the public image, than someone like Don Mattrick, because Don Mattrick, he was a disaster. I joked a couple of times with different people that he was a Sony spy, or Sony or Nintendo spy, sent into Microsoft to infiltrate and destroy the project. And although I was jesting, the fact of the matter is he did so well. It wasn't just him, to be honest. There were a couple of individuals. You remember the Deal With It guy? Yeah. And it just boggled my mind, some of the things that he said in public, because it was almost like he was trying to piss people off, and if he wasn't, I just don't understand how he could assume that those statements or those decisions were not going to piss off the target audience. It's just inevitable to me, but regardless, he did what he did, and here we are. But I do feel that Microsoft are doing a really good job with the Xbox One. I own one, I own a PS4 as well, but I feel both systems are doing pretty well at the moment, and I honestly believe that I'm not saying I'm Phil Spencer's biggest fan, but I think that the decisions he's made so far, including the Xbox One decoupling of Kinect, I think it was a question of, well, he didn't really have a choice at that point. He had to lower the price of the Xbox One to be competitive with Sony, and so that's what he went ahead and did. Anyway, interested to hear your thoughts and opinions on this. I'll see you soon. Take care, and bye for now.